welcome to this latest edition of the All in Skills podcast. And this week is my absolute pleasure to be joined by Steve Herzberg. Steve, hello.
Good to see you, Colin.
Very nice to see you too. And Steve, cricket bats behind you. Your name came up in a conversation completely randomly where somebody saw the name Herzberg and said, there was a cricketer with that name. And I said, well, interestingly enough, are you the one?
Probably. I did play a fair bit of cricket back in the 1980s, 90s and early 2000s. So there's a good chance it would have been me.
And where did you play your cricket?
Well, I was born in England and then parents emigrated to Australia in 1976. And so I sort of grew up playing cricket in Australia, coming through the club system. And then after I went to university, I wanted to go and play cricket in England, which was quite a common thing for young Australians to do. So I went off and played. I had 7 seasons in the UK. I played 2 seasons in Edinburgh. I played at Worcester, Somerset and Kent. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. Had a lot of great times, and it seems a long time ago now.
But you mentioned university, so university came first.
Yeah, I think my parents really encouraged me and my 2 brothers to get something behind you. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I guess like a lot of kids age 15, 16, 17, I really didn't think about my future from a commercial point of view. I just was living in the moment and playing a bit of cricket. And almost by chance, I fell into a Bachelor of Business degree. I still can't remember exactly why I chose it, but I went to Curtin University in Perth, did a marketing major and a public relations minor, and managed to pass every subject. The subject that I was really concerned about failing was management accounting. I just really found it hard to get my head around it. And when I got my results, I thought, God, this is going to be tight. I got 51%. So my only regret was I worked too hard. I had an extra 1% on my sleeve, but that was the one that I found hard work, yeah.
It's not unusual in the UK, for example, for business degrees to have a sandwich year where you go into industry. Is that what happened at Curtin for you or not?
No, we didn't offer that. So we did have, I think, one of my subjects, they put you out sort of on secondment. I did a public relations unit, and so part of that was working for a PR firm, and which was, again, an eye-opener because, prior to that, I just had a few casual jobs. I'd sold ladies' shoes. I worked in a chicken shop briefly. Sold the newspaper at the Perth Royal Show. That was my first ever job. That was an afternoon daily called the Daily News. So, yeah, that was the way it sort of worked was you went to uni, did your courses for that day, and then I didn't live on the campus, so I would drive back home. And that was one of my regrets. I don't have too many regrets in life, but I think I would have got more out of the experience in hindsight if I'd have lived away from home during those university years.
Was it a thing that people in Perth actually go away to university, or was it fairly normal just to stay at home like you did?
Yeah, I think it was more normal to stay home. And as you know, with your English background, in the UK, most people go away from home, and same in the States. But in Perth, the vast majority was sort of living in Perth and studying in Perth as well.
And your pathway after university, was there any thought on your mind, or maybe your parents had opinions about it, what you ought to do with your business degree?
Yeah, I don't know if I can't remember getting a lot of input from my parents. I think they were pleased that I got something behind me. So I had my marketing degree, Bachelor of Business with a marketing major, public relations minor. I got a job through cricket, ironically. A guy who was the captain of the side I was playing in at the time offered me a role as a sort of market researcher, market analyst. And it was my first job. It was a company called QPSX, where I actually got a proper salary. But no, I didn't really, even in my early 20s, I still didn't really have clarity on my career path. I'm glad I had my degree. My cricket was getting better. So I've kind of got this parallel world going on where, I've got qualifications, and should I start working in the business world? Cricket developing, and, it was aspirational. So I sort of started to think more about playing more cricket in my 20s and a bit less about my work.
The business of sport, was that at all developed at that point in Perth or not really?
I don't think so. Certainly nothing like it is now. So when I first played for Western Australia, I only played twice for WA, a year apart, but you got paid to play, but we didn't have any contracts. So most people had to have a job outside. There might be a teacher, there might be maybe a labourer, they might have a trade. It was only the very best players in the state who had, I think they had a national contract with Cricket Australia, or the Australian Cricket Board, as they were known in those days. But no, most people had to have a job. And so the business of sport hadn't really taken off. But now, of course, players earn hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars a year. So sports management and the business of sport has become massive, huge.
So at that point, then, it would be unreasonable to think, maybe you should have been thinking about that. It wasn't It wasn't like an obvious career path for somebody with a passion for sport and an ability and the marketing background.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, it's funny. I've got 3 kids, and they're, one's 18, and that's my son, and my daughters are in their early 20s. And I think at that stage of life, you should be drawn towards the things that you really want to do, that you care about, that you're passionate about. And for me, it just so happened that cricket was my thing. I just was quite attracted to the game, and the fact that I could play in the UK because I was born there was a real advantage as well.
What took you to the UK? I mean, did you have contacts or did you just go on a whim?
Yeah, well, the first season I went over there, I had contacts. My mum's sister lives in Surbiton, and I was able to go and stay with them, which was terrific, and play cricket locally in that area in Surrey. So having family was a big help, and I went across with another guy who I was playing cricket with in Perth, and that gave me a little insight into how cricket in the UK worked, and that opened up opportunities for me to come back in future years. So the first season was a bit like a gap year, if you like, going away and experiencing something a bit different. I'd finished uni, and I remember even, when I was at uni, I was tempted at the end of my first year, say, can I go and have a semester off and go and play cricket? And both my parents were quite consistent to say, you can go and play cricket, but let's get the degree done first. So knuckle down, get through. It was only another couple of years. Once I was qualified, then it gave me the freedom, if you like, to go and explore my interests as a cricketer. And then I was working casually to earn a bit of money to keep me ticking over.
So keeping body and soul together while you were doing the cricket in Surbiton, tough life or
No, it was fun.
Straightforward.
It was good fun. I mean, there I was in my early 20s, and I didn't have a lot to worry about apart from where my next game of cricket was. I mean, I think, ironically, when I was thinking about this interview, what probably held me back as a cricketer was I didn't throw enough effort into my cricket. Like, I put effort in, but I kept thinking, well, what am I going to do if I stop playing or if I get injured? And I thought, well, I've got this marketing degree, so should I work in sales or marketing or management or PR? But I only realised when I got near the end of my cricket career, the guys and girls who really achieve a lot, they're all in. You can't be half pregnant with sport. You've got to be totally committed. And I think your career is not too dissimilar. Somewhere along the line, you're going to have to go, hang on, this is what I do. You draw a line in the sand and you plant your feet and you go, hang on, this is it. I'm going to be a technician, a dentist, a podcaster, whatever it is. But if you're too flippant and you chop and change, I think after a while you're running on that treadmill going nowhere.
This, of course, is still well before even the big money from the Premier League, big money in rugby, big money in cricket. Perhaps the way of thinking about sport was fundamentally different, even, late 80s, early 90s.
Very different time. And I think, most people, we were just playing for fun. It was a social activity. It was fun. It might be some people are in a band, some people are in the Scouts, Girl Guides. Those of us that were playing sport, we were just in it for fun. And if you were good enough and lucky enough to climb up the pyramid and get towards the top, you might play some representative games and then you might get paid a little bit. But it wasn't really seen as a career. I mean, apart from the very elite, whereas now, certainly in Australia and in England, you can be a middle-of-the-road state or county cricketer and you can make a very good living. The game has changed a lot.
I remember Bruce Yardley sold me a pair of sneakers.
Bruce coached me a little bit. Rest in peace. He was he was quite a character. So that might have been up in Midland. Is that right?
It was in Midland, exactly right.
Good old Bruce Yardley, Roo. Terrific guy.
He was a lovely guy. I mean, selling shoes, he was an absolute delight. So interesting. You mentioned 7 seasons in the UK. Does that mean you were flitting between Australia and the UK that whole time?
Yeah. You generally would go to the UK end of the Aussie season, which was sort of end of March, early April, and you'd play in the UK until about end of August, early September, and then jump back on a plane and come back. So you're kind of on a loop playing a lot, which is good for your game to some extent. The more you play, you get your hours up, you develop your skills. And I got to a point where I started to think, well, do I want to stay in the UK or do I want to stay in Australia? And that was confusing in a way. My family was spread far and wide. I had my friends that I'd grown up with in Australia, but my cricket was kind of progressing better in England than it probably was in Australia. So I had to start to think about these things in my 20s. Do I stay in the UK? Do I go back to Australia? And I think I ended up coming back to Australia, which I'm glad I did.
So did you draw a line under that at a certain point? You said, okay, this is my last season. I think I've got to move on.
I think for me, it was funny. I was playing at Somerset. That's the last season of professional cricket I played. And I turned 30 that year. And I'd always said to myself, if I'm 30 and I'm still playing, I was playing a lot of second team cricket, still getting paid on the staff. But I thought I can't be playing in these school grounds in the middle of nowhere or these empty fields. And I thought I better get a real job. And I had done some work in my 20s, like in between when I'd had seasons off from going overseas. And I was starting to think, if I leave this too late, then my options are going to be really restricted in terms of what I can do. So I think the catalyst was, turning 30. I thought, hang on, I better call time with my cricket.
At this stage, were you unburdened by matrimony?
Yeah, I was unburdened, exactly. The burden only happened a few years later.
Is it Perth you went back to, or did you look elsewhere?
I went back to Perth and then I ended up in Sydney, or again, almost by chance, had a few friends. I sort of felt like I'd grown up in Perth, went to high school and Curtin University, but I felt like I'd outgrown Perth a little bit. And I think I've noticed this as I've got a bit older, you need to be in a city that matches your energy. And I'd loved Perth when I was younger growing up, but there I was in my mid-20s, getting closer to 30. And I felt, I'm not saying been there, done that. I loved Perth and I had some great friends there, but I felt I was ready for a change. And it's almost a rite of passage in Australia that if you grow up in Perth at some stage, you'll go and have a look at Melbourne or Sydney. So I came over, I had a few friends in Sydney and thought I might be here for a year or two. And it's almost 30 years later, I'm still here.
What was the first role you took on when you got to Sydney?
Well, it's funny. So I was trying to get a job using my business degree, and it wasn't that easy, because I'd spent quite a bit of time playing cricket, and no employer was really that interested in that, even though I thought they would be. They weren't. And I ended up applying for a job with Cadbury Schweppes, the chocolate and soft drink company, and I got a job. I was offered a role on the confectionery side. So they gave me a vehicle, which was handy because I didn't have a car, and I had to look after a territory in Sydney, basically selling crunchy cherry ripe picnics and flakes and making sure the stock was well merchandised and building relationships with owners of corner stores, 7-Elevens, independent grocers, service stations. That sort of was my first take on a proper sales role in Sydney.
How did it mould your feelings about doing that kind of work?
I think I learned a lot from the experience, and it's helped me a lot in my work as a corporate trainer because I do quite a bit of work with sales teams. But I think I also realised there was a point where I thought this isn't quite right for me. Again, I gave it a go. I don't think I quite fitted into the larger organisation, probably a bit more of a soloist than being part of the larger organisation. And so after a year or year and a half with Cadbury's, I thought, no, maybe I should look at doing something else.
Are those kind of sales roles, by definition, slightly solo enterprises, though? You've got a mission, but aren't you out there doing it on your own, or are you very much part of a team?
You are, but there's a lot of accountability, as there should be. On the whole, you have your territory, you have your customers that you call on. From time to time, your manager might come out and do some coaching with you in the field. But it suits someone who's an independent person, definitely, because most of the time it's you on your own in the car.
Did you feel supported in that role then? That head office, massive corporation, are they providing the sort of support that you need?
I felt like I could have had more training, definitely. I would have benefited from more coaching, more mentoring, more support. I think that would have increased the chances of me staying there longer. And I'd started there in a sales role, but I was trying to think, where's the next spot? And I guess a lot of people were trying to get into roles in head office, which was marketing based down in St Kilda Road in Melbourne, actually. But those jobs were few and far between. So you almost had to do your time on the road before you could get the opportunity to maybe move into an off-road role.
So what took you away from Cadbury Schweppes?
I think I decided that, I wanted to have one more roll of the dice with cricket. So I'd sort of had a season or two off. I'd almost thought that was it with cricket. And then an opportunity came up to go and play for Kent, again through a guy who'd coached me in Perth, and he wanted me to come over. I'd played some cricket for Tasmania as well. I had a season down there. And anyway, so an opportunity came up. I thought, that's it. I've had enough as a candy man. I'll go back and I'll go all in with my cricket. I'll give it my best shot. And that was like another roll of the dice where I played a bit more cricket for a few more seasons. And then I realised I didn't want to go back when I finished cricket to a corporate role, and I moved into coaching and teaching. That was like the next phase of my career.
How did you make that decision? You're in your 30s. I mean, you've had all the cricket and, as you say, the Candyman role. So coaching, how prominent was that as a thing, let's say, at that point?
It's a good point. It wasn't something that I, again, was overly aware of. And then when I played in Edinburgh, I had 2 cricket seasons in Edinburgh with a club called the Watsonians. And part of my role was to be the coach at the club and also to work for the school. So I did some coaching at the school, and then I coached the club as well as being a player. And that was my first exposure, and I really enjoyed it. And then it got me thinking, well, if I go back to Sydney, I wonder whether I could get a role like this at one of the independent schools where they often want an ex-player to come in and look after the cricket program. So I wrote to about 7 or 8 schools in Sydney saying, look, this is who I am. Here's my background as a sportsman. experience as a coach. Would there be an opportunity to come and have a chat with you when I get back to Sydney about doing some work at your school? And I think 7 of the 8 said they'd come back to me. So I'm still waiting for them to come back. It's only been 30 years. It won't be long. But one of the schools said, we'd love to have a chat with you. And I had a chat, and that opened up an opportunity to go in and start a relationship with the school. And I started as a cricket coach. Then an opportunity came up to work in the PE department. Now I had a business degree, not a PE degree, but there was a window there, and they said, Steve, would you be happy to take on this load? Someone's going overseas. And then before I knew it, they offered me an academic subject as well. So then all of a sudden, I'm a cricket coach, I'm teaching PE, and I was teaching the Year 9 boys Asian studies. Amazing.
No need for like a PGCE or a equivalency, some kind of qualification to do that?
No, it may be different now, but in those days, the school's main concern was, do I have a degree? And do I fit in with the values of the school? And it was, again, a transition. So a few years prior to that, there I was, I'd been the candy man, then I'd been playing professional cricket, and now I was employed by a school, mainly teaching PE, coaching cricket, and had an academic subject. They did offer me one other role at the school, and I thought of this as well. It was working in the payroll department. There was an opportunity to work part-time under the payroll master. And that was sitting there doing Excel spreadsheets and trying to learn how the pay system worked. And again, you learn by doing, but it wasn't the right fit for me. I think I lasted 3 months, but I need to be in and around the humans. I need a bit of energy. Staring at those spreadsheets all day, it didn't really cut it for me.
But just to go back just briefly, you wrote cold to 8 independent schools.
Yeah.
Okay, so no leads. It was just you chose what, based on geography or?
Geography, found out what were some of the schools in Sydney that potentially would have a cricket coach or cricket master, found out who to write it to, and I mean, there's no internet in those days, put it in an envelope and send it on its way.
Okay, all right, nice one. And how long did you last in the school that you did work for?
Yeah, so then I lasted, it was Sydney Grammar was the school, and I was there for 5 years. And then again, so now I've got married. And I'm starting to think, is this it? I'm now in my mid-30s and I'm living in a city that's expensive. I'm getting paid a school teacher's wage. And I'm starting to think maybe I should do, I've got that business degree and I've done sport and maybe I should do something else. I got itchy feet. And my wife, ironically, was working for a guy who was a corporate trainer. I had no idea what corporate training was. And she used to bring home some of his material to format over the weekend and document different documents. And I looked at it and it reminded me a lot of the cricket stuff. There was things on goal setting and teams and, motivation. And I thought this is quite interesting. So I found out a bit more about the work and met the guy who she was working for. And he said, would you be interested in coming to work for me? I said, well, not really. I've got a job at a school. And he said, well, let's talk about it. And anyway, he was quite convincing. And a few months later, I decided I was going to throw my lot in with the school and come across and work as a corporate trainer.
In parallel, keeping both jobs, or?
No, I'd left the school and jumped into that was it. I thought that I'm going to go into this corporate training. I don't, honestly, when I look back at it, it was quite a risk because I had a good, secure position at a good school, but something inside of me was saying this is not the answer. I'd never formally trained as a school teacher. It was a good school, but I felt still, and I don't think I had kids at that stage. If I did, I just had one. I still felt like I wanted to explore something a bit deeper.
Some of the people I talk to refer to imposter syndrome. At any point, did you feel that, or do you feel you have the confidence to take on this unknown new role in corporate training?
Look, I think we all have imposter syndrome in different waves. So, it comes and goes. But I was always quite confident, and I think the sport gave me the confidence. And I was always open to learning new skills. I felt like keep learning. And I think that gave me the confidence to say, look, I can leave school, I can give it a go as a corporate trainer. If it doesn't work out, then maybe I can go back into a school environment. I mean, I don't think like that now. I'm almost 60, but in my 30s, I saw things very differently.
How did it pan out then? Did you set yourself up? Or do you talk us through the mechanics of setting yourself up as a name that people actually want to spend time with?
I worked for this chap for 5 years, and he helped me understand the business, how it works, how to win work, how to deliver work. And then again, I got to another 5-year situation and thought, I don't think I want to keep working for this guy. Maybe I should do something on my own. And I gave it some thought, and I thought maybe I'll go out and have a crack So after almost 5 years of working for someone else, I had a few months off, and we went traveling and came back and said, no, let's give it a go. We'll start our own business. And rolled the dice and got started. And when I say got started, Colin, that's literally picking up the phone, calling organisations, trying to find the right person to speak with about professional development courses, about presenting courses, leadership programs. So it took a bit of hard work, certainly in those first few years.
And again, the cold calling, right?
Yeah, without that, you had no chance. I mean, there was no social media didn't exist. And there's nothing like TikTok or YouTube. LinkedIn wasn't around. So you had to really network. That was something that I realized as I got older, that to be successful, you've got to be out and about. You've got to be meeting people, connecting, following up. And I often say, I train a bit of networking now in when I'm running some of my courses. There's a subtle difference between networking and not working. All you're doing is changing the E to an O. But networking is a skill, and you do need to get out and about. And when I look back, when I started, I was probably much better because I was younger and keener to get out and about and go to different events and meet people and ideally speak at events wherever possible.
Networking, is this a teachable skill? Do you think some people have it and some people don't, or can people learn?
Well, a bit of both. I think you can learn. I think some people it does come more naturally for them, but there are certain skills that you can learn. You can learn to remember people's names. You can remember to connect people. You can manage your database. You don't have to be an extrovert. You can be an introvert and be a good networker. It's often staying in touch, as I say, SIT, stay in touch with your connections and offer things of value to your network, and you can become a very good networker. I think where people get mixed up is they try to take all the time, pulling things from their net. And after a while, we've all met people like that. You wear a bit thin with them, don't you?
Okay, absolutely. Talk us through a little bit then about the evolution of this, of your own business.
The evolution has been over a number of years, finding out what we were good at, what did I like doing, what was I good at, and can we make money as well? To me, they're the three things you always consider in your career. What are you good at? What do you like doing? And is it commercially viable? And often remind people of that. Like, you might like playing the guitar, you might be quite good at it, but you're not really going to make much money at it unless you're Bruce Springsteen. So it's trying to find those three sweet spots. And for me, I found I was good at helping people be better in the way they presented. So I've done a lot of work in that space. A number of years ago, I developed a leadership program, which has been quite popular with different industries. And then with certain clients, I've helped the sales teams. And they've been the three areas on the whole where I've spent most of my time.
You presumably, as an individual, as Steve, you're very central to how the business works. So your presence there is not simply a question of, here's some material, call me if you need me.
That's right, which is a strength and a weakness, because it's very reliant. It's key man reliant on me to get up and deliver the work. And again, if I had my time again, we did try at certain stages between about year 5 and year 10 to build the business, put different staff on. And we were quite good at finding, we've had some really good staff who came on board, but then keeping them is a different skill. That's where you've got to manage, coach, lead, inspire, and often I was too busy doing the work. And again, that's something that you learn on your journey. My skill set probably wasn't so good at managing those individuals. If I'd have had someone else who was good at managing them, it might have helped the business go in a slightly different direction.
What do you find then that companies, corporations come to you requesting? What is it that they need in terms of the work that you do?
It varies from time to time. So, last year I did a lot of work with a pharmaceutical company who had a sales team of about 50 people, selling primarily to doctors and pharmacies. And the team get together about every 2 months. So what they wanted from me was someone who could come in and train the staff in a process that they could follow, like a sales process. So working with their existing products and ideas, but give them a formula or a process that they could follow. Work with them again every couple of months. I mean, they're delivering another module, part of a process, PRINT, a print sales process. Other companies might want to talk quite often about communication skills. I'm just preparing a job at the moment where there's some young athletes working in the golf industry who need to develop media skills, how to handle the media, how to handle the public, how to deal with difficult questions, how to make sure they're playing the game in the right spirit. So a golf club has employed me to do that work with their people. So look, it's wide and it's varied. I enjoy doing the leadership work because it helps you with your own leadership style. And I run a program that has some modules on coaching and high-performing teams, leadership and presenting, and a bit on networking as well. So that's how it's kind of evolved over the years.
People talk about the cultural fit. You work for yourself, but I mean in terms of you working with another company. Do you ever find that there is a clash, a cultural clash?
It's such a great question because it is all about cultural fit. And I think in your career, when I think of the audience listening to this podcast, you have to find an organisation that is going to fit in well with your beliefs, your view of the world, your culture, your values. Otherwise, you're going to get very stressed. And I found over the years, I've become more selective in who I want to work with. Like, on the whole, you want to work with people who get you and they see the value that you bring. And when you're working with someone who doesn't get you and they don't see the value, they're questioning every invoice, there's a lack of trust, and it just doesn't work. So, no, I'm a really big believer. You've got to find, in a way, find your tribe. Where do you fit in best? And it doesn't always happen immediately. It might take a number of years. I mean, in my case, I worked at the school. I was the candy man there with Cadbury's. I coached cricket. And it took quite a journey, a number of years, to find out what was best for me, which ironically, when I look back at it, we've got a small family business, which is terrific. I've been very fortunate to work closely with my wife, and the kids have a bit of an awareness of what we do as well.
And setting up on your own, clearly this is something a lot of people think about, dream about, but not everyone does. What word of wisdom or words of wisdom would you have for, especially a younger person considering that pathway?
Yeah, well, I'd say firstly, it's easier when you're younger, because you've got more energy and you've got more time. I'd call it an amber light approach with caution. Most people that I have met over the years, I would say, don't work on your own, because it only suits a certain type of person. And you do need, like, the ability to pick up the phone, to be persistent, to understand marketing and sales. If that's not your forte, you need then to have people on your team around you who are good in those areas. I mean, and the other thing, of course, if you work from home, I'm in the home office today, you need the discipline to get yourself going, like to get out of bed in the morning, do your routines, get to work and get cracking. And I've spent a lot of time sitting at this desk thinking, if I worked for a large organisation now, I'd be having a coffee break, chatting with Jan in accounts about how well the Swans are playing.
And they're playing well.
They're having a good season, yes.
Yeah. But for those people, I guess, social animals, it would be a challenge, right? Not to have exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And so again, that's part of the journey. I remember I was chatting with my son, and I think it was last night. He's an electrical apprentice. He's in his third year. He may set up his own business one day. And I said to him, Zach, I'd love to give you a bit of a hand because I've learned a lot along the way. I can't help him on the tools. I'm hopeless in that space, but I might be able to give him some guidance and suggestions, and the importance of the networking, having a team around you, a good bookkeeper, a good accountant, a business coach. All of those things help immensely. If you're on your own, you really do. I think it may be different if you're an author or a painter, but I think for most small business people, when I look back at my own experience, I would really encourage them, have a coach, have a support network around you. I've had my own coach in the business 15 years now, Richard. He's been terrific, and we catch up and I coach him and he coaches me, and we get together about once a month. We speak on the phone most weeks. And without that, yeah, I'd be lost. It's really important.
Is that a formal or an informal arrangement you've got going there?
Well, it's informal, but at the end of each call, we say, well, when's our next catch up? In a week or two. We don't invoice each other because we sort of reciprocate. But he understands my business well, and I understand his business well. And it's really good to have someone you can talk to who's not your spouse. I think you've got to be careful talking to your spouse too much. They've got enough on their plate.
You mentioned kids. They're not following you in the direction of corporate training.
No. Well, my middle one is a teacher. She's qualified and has started her teaching career this year. My eldest is a nurse, and my youngest, my son, is an electrician. And they're all on their journey. And I think when we look at the future, I'd like to think that they've chosen careers where there'll still be plenty of demand. No matter what happens with AI, we're still going to need good nurses. We're going to need great teachers, and we're going to need really sharp electricians who can solve any number of problems.
Is that something you think that they considered when they made their choices, or is that something that maybe you raised when you had the conversations with them?
That's a good question, Colin. I think they made their own decisions. We did have conversations from time to time about options and ideas, but I think they all came to their own decisions, at the right time, what they thought was going to be right. My middle one started in speech pathology, and after about 6 weeks, she said, I don't want to do this. This is not me. So she got to the end, I think, of one semester or one term, and then jumped horses and went into teaching. My youngest one left school at the end of year 10 and said, I've had it with school. I want to become an electrician. And at 15, he was out there on the tools. And so now he's 3.5 years in. And my eldest, she, for some reason, she wasn't sure what she wanted to do, but she chose nursing, and she's an amazing nurse. I was lucky to witness her nursing skills just recently, and she's terrific.
So, future-proof children.
I hope so.
And I should ask then about the impact of AI on the work that you do. You've been active for, let's say, a couple of decades doing this work. Have you seen AI impinging or having an impact on the work that you do and the way that you do it?
I think it's coming in, yeah. And I certainly more aware that you need to use it more. I was preparing some material for an upcoming program I'm going to do in Melbourne. And I'm thinking, what's an activity that would help emphasize the point that I'm emphasizing with this client? So I just went on to ChatGPT or whichever AI feature I was using that day or program, and it just punched out so much content. It can be really useful. I don't think I've mastered how to use it, far from it. I've got to start embracing it more, but it will certainly have an impact, that's for sure, in the sort of work that I'm doing. But I'd like to think there's still good demand for high-quality coaches, trainers, facilitators who can bring a room together and use the human skills that we all have to connect and learn from each other, which is very different to asking a computer what the answer is. I mean, in a way, Colin, you could have done this interview via AI and I wouldn't have to sit here. You could just ask questions and it would just populate the...
Well, when you get the LLM ready for your for the Steve Herzberg plugin, maybe that's the future as you approach retirement. Upload yourself.
Possibly. Who knows?
Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for your time.
Really appreciate it. Great to chat with you, Colin.